Welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess, here, back with another waffle wrap up. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about the WAFL. And joining me, one of my faithful co hosts, the guy that helped me start this section of the podcast, Mr. Rick Gauchi of Waffle Facts, Waffle Footy Facts. Rick, great to see you, sir.
Hey, Donny, good to be back online again. It's been a couple of weeks since we've caught up. So, yeah, good to talk waffle again with you. And let's get through the exciting few weeks of the men's league and a great climax or conclusion to the women's league, which we'll touch on as well. So, yeah, looking forward to another chat.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be fun. And I know as a Swans man yourself, you are very chuffed as well as your Black Ducks are doing, but we will let you have some more fun talking about that just a littlest bit. So it's been a few weeks. It's been 5 weeks since we talked just a little bit about the footy that's happened. Because like I said, your Swans are playing quite excellent football. And we've went through the women's finals. We have a premiere and surprise, surprise, fun happened in the end. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But your thoughts on the last month of footy?
Yeah, well, you touched on it that my Swannies are doing really well, and a 7 game winning streak just ended by a draw in the last round. But yeah, it's been pretty good for Swans. Been a pretty successful time as far as matches goes, and a modern day great of the waffle in Tony Knott reaching his 300th game in the process, and also breaking the club record held by the legend Bill Walker of 305 games. So that was pretty big for Swans in the last few weeks. But there's been a few stories. Claremont have also really pushed their case for a final spot, winning 4 of their last 5 games, and their only loss was a loss to Swans, pretty much on the siren. So they're charging. East Perth have had a strange little run of extremely close games of under 10 points. I think it was 5 games in a row in single figure margins, winning a few of those, losing a few of those. South Fremantle, East Fremantle also been pretty consistent in there, and the other teams sort of fading away with West Perth and Subi sort of losing any momentum they had, in particular the Falcons with a bit of a long losing streak. Have sort of pretty much ended their season. So it's down to 6 teams in the men's, and yeah, the last few weeks have been pretty exciting. And the next month of football, some massive games with the top 6 teams all pretty much playing against each other. So yeah, mini finals starting from this weekend with the Fremantle Derby, which we'll touch on when we look at the previews of the round. So yes, pretty exciting stuff, and I've been pretty happy with the way my Swannies have been performing, which is pretty expected when you win seven games in a row.
Well, it always makes me smile when I look at the results over the weekend and your Swans win because I know I'm like, well, Rick is happy. So So it's
Yeah,
always
that's
been
good.
fun, and I have to say the
Yeah.
women's final was absolutely fantastic. I know I won't, for those that don't know, I will not spoil the ending, but let's just safe to say it came a little bit. There was some fun in that grand final for sure. But let's jump into it. We will do some round reviews. We will start in round 13 since the last round that we talked about was round 12 the last time we got together. So jump to round 13 as we see Peel Thunder fall to the Subiaco Lions 66-60. Perth knocked out, take down West Perth 173. East Perth falls to South Fremantle. Actually beats, never mind if I could read my math correctly. East Perth defeats South Fremantle 68-65. In the middle of your streak of 7 wins, sees the Swan Districts get a big win over the West Coast Eagles 104-80, and sees Claremont, as you said, starting to find their form as they knock off East Fremantle 62-53. A couple of crackers, a 3-point game, as you said. East Perth playing in a few close games, and Subiaco with an impressive win over top of the table Peel.
Yeah, they're definitely surprises around there. Subi getting over Peel. Subi actually won both games against Peel this year. So at that stage, I think Peel only lost to probably the 3 games of the season, and 2 of them against the Subi. So interesting how some sides match up well against other sides. And Subi historically have had, as most teams have, against Peel a very strong record, but Subi have the best record of any team against Peel. So a big win there. Perth pretty much shut the door on West Perth's season, even as early as round 13 with that defeat, a game that the Falcons would have expected to win. And that was actually Perth's first win at home against West Perth since I should have had this stat handy for me, but since around about 2014, so a good 10 or 12 years since Perth have been able to beat West Perth at their own home ground. So that was one of the longest streaks in WAFL. So that was ended. East Perth, obviously, with a short win, a little win over South Fremantle. Swans pretty comfortable over the Eagles. Eagles did kick the last few goals in the last quarter. Swans were well ahead. So sort of West Coast got a bit of respectability to the score into the scoreboard in the last quarter. And a big win for Claremont over East Fremantle, not margin-wise, but definitely for their season. And Claremont have pretty much been playing on do-or-die matches after their dismal 2-5 start to the season. Swans also started 2-4, so both Swans and Claremont are the informed teams at the moment, are really pushing for to finish high up in the top 5 in Swans' case, and for Claremont to actually get into 5. So that was a massive win for Claremont.
Yeah, some great games there. We'll move on to round 14 with Peel Thunder bounce back after the loss and put a whooping on West Coast 116-42. Claremont get a win over South Fremantle 68-57. Subiaco just falls short to East Perth 78-75. East Fremantle find a way and get the job done against Perth 65-51. And the Persic Gauchi Cup again goes to our friend Rick Gauchi as the Swan Districts put a whooping on West Perth 142-79. I remember seeing you two going back and forth on our group chat and talking, and I remember some choice words being said by Paul about how his team's form was that particular day.
Yeah, yeah, that was actually it was a really fun game to watch. I was not at the game. I think it was a wet weather was forecast, and I was not feeling the best that day, so stayed home and watched it. And the first half, it was an amazing game of football. It reminded me of football back in the 80s when I was growing up as a kid, and there was, most teams were kicking 20 goals, and a lot of teams were kicking 20 goals and losing games. So at half time, it was, I think, 10 goals to 9 or something. Both full forwards had a field day. Coleman kicked 6 goals, 5 for Swans. Keitel kicked 5 goals for West Perth, all in the first half. And it was a shootout that first half, that it was going backwards and forwards, and whoever got the ball out the centre would kick a goal. Swans were able to continue it in the second half, outscoring the Falcons 10 goals to 2 in the second half, and a massive win for Swans, biggest win for the club's history at Joondalup. So big win there. So that really sort of cemented Swans as one of the probably, one of the favourites for the flag, I think. But there's probably 6 favourites at the moment, so it's very hard to pick. But the other results we touched on, Peel, bounced back over over West Coast, as you said. Claremont, another big win over a top 5 side at the time in South Fremantle. Low scoring game, so Claremont have really shut down the opposition and really keeping opposition to low scores. East Perth, their second consecutive 3-point win, this time against Subi, who pushed East Perth after defeating Peel the previous round, and East Fremantle, as expected, a nice enough win against Perth against in a low scoring game. But the weather at that time of the year really was pretty wet over that weekend in the first weekend of July.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Let's move on to round 15, where we have some bye rounds with this. So only 3 games to go to cover, as West Coast start off their round in an absolute shootout with the Falcons, but they get the chocolates by 8, 114-106. East Fremantle beat Peel Thunder in a Titan clash in the WAFL 89-66, and the Swan Districts continue their winning streak as they get a 7-point win over Claremont 82-75. Some impressive games, only 3 games, but some good ones that we got to enjoy in round 15.
Yeah, the West Coast and West Perth game. Yeah, as you mentioned, a shootout. It's only I think the third time West Coast have ever scored over 100 points in a game, and it ended a streak of some 60 odd games without hitting the triple figures. Keitel continued his little hot streak that he's in at the moment with another bag of goals for West Perth. And if they lost the previous week to Perth, had sort of shut the door on the Falcon season, and the Swans one, that definitely did end the Falcons season, unfortunately for them. East Fremantle, good win over Peel. So Peel is sort of a little bit off over the last few weeks. So a big win for the Sharks. And the Swans and Claremont game, it was a cracker. Claremont got out to a 26-point lead. Swans were able to pull back. When the siren sounded, it was a 1-point lead for Swans, and Aidan Clark managed to dribble a goal through the last kick as the siren went from about 60 metres out, and it bounced through. And Swans actually won in the end by 7 points. And I believe the Swans players didn't even know they won by 7 points. They all thought they won by 1 point until they looked at the score later on and realised that they won by 7 points. But excellent game, and both teams had come into that on the back of 5 game winning streaks. So they were the hottest teams in the league, and it was played like a final. It was a great game. And again, fortunately for Swans, they got over the line in the end. But yeah, an excellent game of football again between Swans and Claremont.
All righty, let's move to round 16, where again, 4 teams take a seat and only 3 games this round, but still some good ones as East Perth survive a scare from Perth by 7, 81-74. East Fremantle edge out West Perth by 16, 76-60. And South Fremantle with an impressive win over Subiaco, 112-68. I know only 3 games, but some fun ones here, including, as you said, East Perth and South Fremantle staying a little bit closer to a couple of sides near the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah. Well, the East Perth and Perth game, East Perth was 6 goals, well, 45 points in front at 3/4 time, and you thought, oh, how far East Perth? Perth outscored them 6 goals, 3-1 point in the last quarter. And I think if there's another 5 minutes left in that game, the Demons might have actually snatched that one. So a great performance by Perth. East Perth, their last quarters have been a bit of a concern recently with some fade outs in the last quarter. So yeah, pretty disappointing result really for East Perth, despite the fact that they did get away with the victory by 7 points. They would have liked to win by more, particularly when you look at the finals and how close it is. Percentage is going to be a big part of the finals. West Perth and East Fremantle, again, another close game. Keitel, 5 goals again for West Perth in this one. So he continued his hot streak of goal kicking. And South Fremantle, probably not unexpected, a pretty comfortable win over Subi. But again, at 3/4 time, there was only a couple of goals of difference. And Hayden Schleith really led South Fremantle on this game with 30 plus possessions and 5 goals. And the last quarter, 7 goals to 2. They sort of ran over the top and showed their class in that last quarter, South Fremantle.
Definitely for sure. We'll jump to it. Final round, the last of the buys for the end of this particular situation. We go to round 17 is Subiaco with a nice impressive win over West Coast, 107-88. We will skip the next game because we will talk about it last because we've already kind of known what happens here. Claremont with an impressive smashing of East Perth, 87-28, and Peel Thunder back to their winning ways, knocking off Perth 86-67. But we got to talk about it. A 60-60 draw with South Fremantle. As you said, unfortunately, 2 points lost, and you had a chance. Both teams, neither kicking straight, go both kicking 8-12 in this.
Yes. Draws are interesting in Australian rules football. So a lot of people want an extra time or another way to make a result. But to me,
I like the draw. I
I like
love
the
the
draw
draw.
as well. It's interesting. It does leave you some weird emotions at the end of the game.
Hmm.
I know that Dad and I drove away from that game disappointed. I usually say again, one team is sort of disappointed of a draw, the other team is really ecstatic. They got away with it, got bonus points. And I think in this game, even though I am a Swans supporter, I'm pretty clear to say that Swans through that game. South Fremantle were not really looking like they were going to win it really at any stage. To their credit, they never let Swans get away. Swans would always be a couple of goals ahead. South Fremantle would put it back constantly. With, again, 10 minutes to go, Swans were 19 points in front, and you thought, yep, we've done enough. Bryce Watson was a bit of a star in the second half for Swans as a defender, never kicked a goal in 30-odd games of WAFL footy, kicked 3 in the second half and was inspirational, including what we thought was a sealer at the 20-minute mark. But South Fremantle, give them credit, as I said, they never gave up and leveled the scores a couple of times in the last quarter. Will Collins from Swans kicked a 70-metre torpedo that went through for a point with a couple of minutes to go. The ball was sort of dispute in the Swans half-forward line. South Fremantle got a free kick for a high tackle. Seen the replay of it. Yeah, just probably borderline, but it happened. They got it down forward. Young Manfred Kelly took a really good mark about 35 metres out in front, and we all thought, oh, my God, we've lost this somehow again. Swans have a history over the last couple of years of losing games in the last 10 minutes, and we thought, oh, here we go again. As Kelly lined up 35 metres out, not far out at all. Just as he kicked the ball, the siren went, and the siren at South Fremantle is not a burp, it's a siren. So sorry about the sound effects, everybody, but that's how it goes, and it is a bit off-putting. And the poor young fella, as he kicked the ball, the siren went, and I think that just sort of adjusted his kick a little bit. The kick went towards the goals. It sort of faded. The Swans boys went to knock it out. One bloke tapped it onto the other bloke's shoulder, and it went through for a point. Um, so it ended up being a draw after the siren. There was a bit of conjecture at the end with the umpires just working out whether it was a score. So for 10 or 15 seconds after the siren, nobody knew if the Swans had won by a point or if it was a draw. And at the end, the umpires called it through for a point. Probably a fitting result in the end, I guess, from a fixture when it's a close game that both teams share the points. But as a Swan supporter, I definitely went away upset. I know the Swans coach was very upset after the game. South Fremantle probably, having a bit of a pat on the back to themselves for getting 2 points where they probably weren't expecting it throughout the game. But amazing finish. It makes it very interesting for the finals now. It sort of takes percentage out of the equation for Swans and South Fremantle compared to other teams. But between the two teams, there's only 1 percentage point difference between them and one win. So, yeah, pretty amazing result. I think aside from that game, probably the big talking point of that game was Claremont's win over East Perth. Keeping East Perth to 3 goals, none in the second half, a 10-goal win for Claremont. East Perth, maybe they're just off the rails a little bit. They did have that run of close games. But this game, a 59-point win for Claremont. They're pushing their way in Claremont. Maybe they've come from too far behind to get into the finals, but a massive month of football coming up for pretty much everyone in the top 6, that nobody is safe. 4 games to go. Even Peel, who are currently on top, if results go against them, they could easily lose their last 4 games and drop out the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Claremont, who are 6th, could potentially end up top. It's so close. So that was a massive win for Claremont, and East Perth's percentage went down from 121 to 113. So that puts them back in the logjam with the other teams percentage wise. So I think we're coming up for an exciting month, Donny, coming to finish the season.
It's going to be interesting. The only thing there's a little bit of intrigue taken out because you really, as you kind of said, there's 6 teams fighting for 5 spots, so one person's going to be left out. But it's the fact that all 6 of those teams are all within a couple of games. Like, one bad
Yep.
month of form could cost you the finals. One good month of form could get you to the
Yep.
top of the table. It's going to be so exciting. Like I said, only knowing 6 teams are still available is kind of a little sad, but again, the fact that everybody's so close still may make it quite
Yep.
exciting. Speaking of exciting, we will jump to the women's finals. We're a few weeks away. I know that this has had plenty of time to digest, but we got to talk about it since we haven't had a chance to talk about it first. We'll go to the first week of the finals. Unfortunately, Swans fall to the West Perth Falcons in impressive fashion as the I've got the flu. Hi, Paul. Thank you. Sorry that you aren't feeling well. As I get your message on the podcast, we got that. So hopefully Paul is feeling better very, very soon. So West Perth with an impressive win in the women's version of the Gauchi Persic Cup again, as the Falcons get a win 70-26. One of those, a couple of quarters really burned Swans, as both the second and fourth quarters, West Perth put on 2 or 3 goals. Swans were good. They just could not get their offense going. That West Perth midfield just absolutely overran them in this game. And then an impressive win by East Fremantle, surviving surges by this Claremont Tigers team and getting a win by 3, 31-28, sending the Sharks all the way into the grand final and sending Claremont down to face West Perth in the other preliminary final. Couple of good games. Again, I know it's a blowout. Swans played well. West Perth just showed they're a very strong side when they show up.
Yeah. West Perth, I think you just proved that they were. I think, Swans were pretty good to get to the finals, but it seemed to be that the 3 stronger teams were the top 3 on the ladder: Claremont, East Fremantle, West Perth. And I guess this result sort of cemented that. And the first quarter was pretty close, but yeah, as you mentioned, a couple of big quarters. At the second quarter, 3 goals to none, was probably the quarter that broke Swans back in that particular game. And the last quarter finishing 4 goals to nothing, and a big win for West Perth, well deserved, and a good season by Swans, particularly after their last season was a bit disappointing. So a lot of hope. There's a very young side down at Swans for this year, and there's hope for them for next year. But well done to West Perth, and they progressed through to the preliminary final against Claremont. And the Claremont East Fremantle game those teams play close matches, don't they, Donny?
They just
Another
they
thriller
can't you
going down to
can't
the wire.
separate these two. I mean, you can
Yeah,
barely put a sheet of paper between these two. I know East Fremantle played such a good season. They only had one loss the entire season, but man, these two lock horns and there is nothing between them. Like there it is literally microscopic type of difference between these two. That's how
yeah.
good they both are. So we'll jump to the preliminary final as Claremont. They do what they need to do as per usual as they knock off West Perth 55-28 again. The Tigers just too good. West Perth, they're a team that there's a lot of talent there. I think it's just you face a very veteran Claremont team that they were very motivated in this game. They put it on West Perth, but West Perth did not do themselves any injustice. They played a very good game. Claremont's just too good.
Yeah, they have. Sorry, I just lost my AirPods there for a sec, Donny. Sorry.
Nah, you're good.
Uh, and now I'm going to take them out because it's just going through my speaker now. So I don't know what happened. I think run out of battery. So I did sort of miss what you said there. Sorry, mate. But yeah, it was a good performance by Claremont. The first half was 4-0-0. That's pretty much over at halftime. It's probably too big a margin in the women's game. 4 goals at halftime, and in the end, it was a 4-goal result to Claremont. So the Falcons did keep with them in the second half. But I think for the league and for the competition, and as we'll discuss how the grand final was, shortly. That I think was a result that I think the league wanted or needed at least. I think for an exciting grand final,
Mhm.
which happened in a waterlogged venue the next week.
Yeah, definitely. We'll jump to the grand final, and there is no way to say this, but I mean, these teams are playing leapfrog because East Fremantle goes undefeated. Claremont knocks them off in the grand final 2 years ago. Last year, Claremont goes undefeated. East Fremantle knocks them off in the grand final. And to add to this leapfrog, Claremont does it again as they get a 3-point win over East Fremantle in the grand final. In a game that honestly, this is one of those, if you're East Fremantle, you're kicking yourself because if you look at just the score line, the behind kicked is what cost them this game. Is Claremont just a little bit better kicking straight, kicking 3-2-20, falling to the 17 points for East Fremantle 2-5. I mean, just one of those goes through, and we have extra time. Two of those go through. East Fremantle caps off an amazing season, but the Tigers do it again. Another premiership, 2 in 3 years, and three straight grand finals between these two teams, and another classic we were treated to.
Yeah, it was an exciting game. As I've sort of mentioned through the podcast, I don't watch lot of the women's football, but I did watch the second half of this. And I mentioned in the men's when on that weekend, it was pretty wet. And this was an extremely wet weekend. And this played on a Sunday up at Joondalup, and it was waterlogged ground. There was puddles all over the ground. So the score, a lot of people do comment on low scores in the women's football, but I think a men's game in this day was probably not much difference in the score line. So 3-2. It was wet. It was tight. It was close. Claremont at halftime, 2 goals to 3 points. You'd think Claremont were going to run away. Claremont didn't kick a goal for the rest of the game until the last minute,
Mm-hmm.
and which was the goal to put them back ahead. So East Fremantle did kick a goal in each of the third and fourth quarters, and you thought with a couple of minutes to go, they had a great goal kicked with probably 5 minutes to go, and you thought, oh, I think East Fremantle's going to get over the line. They've got all the momentum.
Mm-hmm.
They were going forward. Claremont were hanging in there. There was a couple of points kicked, as you mentioned, and Claremont looked like they didn't quite have it. But then after East Fremantle got their goal to put them in the lead, Claremont sort of switched back on. They started to push the game, push forward, and then a great little snap out of a pack, a goal put Claremont ahead. And at that stage, it was less than I think a minute to go, and the Claremont girls managed to get the win. And I think that's maybe the third or fourth year in a row now the minor premier, who's been the dominant side throughout the season, has failed on grand final day. So a point to the women's teams for next year. Don't dominate the home and away season. Come second season, we'll lose a couple of games and then you'll win the grand final. I think that's how it works.
Well, I'm sitting here right now. I almost want to Nostradamus and go East Fremantle will beat Claremont will go undefeated. East Fremantle will lose a couple of games, and East Fremantle will win in the grand final. Like I feel like I can just record that now, and if it happens, I'm just gonna sit here because if
Yep.
if this keeps going the way it's going, I don't know. Maybe next year we'll see the Hoodoo break. But fantastic. Again, I love that you called that out. I don't care about the score. I just want to see good football. And I know it's wet weather footy, and these girls get after it. These are two really good sides, and they played as best they possibly could in the conditions that they are. Another amazing grand final. It's great to see the women get their props, and I love seeing more and more enthusiasm for the women's game. So it's absolutely nothing but fantastic. Congratulations to the Tigers. Another premiership. That's 2 in 3 years. Absolutely fantastic. Let's jump to the burning questions. We'll stay on the women's side really, really quickly. Um, and I'll go with it. The finals were outstanding. I thought they were fantastic. A couple of blowouts, but in the long runs, good competitive footy is always great. How crazy is it to think of it that this is the third consecutive season where Claremont and East Fremantle play in the title game, and the team that dominated the regular season, the home and away season, was not the one holding up the flag at the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned earlier, it's a bit of a strange conundrum, isn't it? That the team on the top who dominated doesn't get over the line at the end of the season. But I guess it comes to show you grand finals are a different beast.
Mhm.
It all matters what happens on the day. So, what's happened in the previous 24 or 25 weeks in the season means absolutely nothing come to grand final day. Both teams start nil all, and it's 100 minutes of football or 80 minutes in the women's league. And it's what happens on the day, and it could be a kick, a goal in the last minute or two of a game, is decides the whole season. So, how good is it to end a season with such a close game and a good quality game despite the weather conditions? And who's to say that Claremont and East Fremantle don't do it again next year and the result is swapped over again? So, how exciting would that be for the competition and for the fans of the women's game? I think both teams will change a bit. I know there's couple of Claremont players that are retiring after that game, and obviously the drafting and stuff like that will come in. But
Mhm.
yeah, pretty exciting stuff for sure.
Definitely, for sure. It's always great.
Yeah,
All right, we'll jump to the men. We jump to the men's, and we still, and I'll go to this. We'll go to the top of the table. There's still a close race for the minor premiership. In your opinion, Rick, who do you think has the best shot to be minor premiers in 4 short weeks?
yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Anyone in the top six could get there. But I did a bit of a preview for myself last week before last weekend's game, and sort of predicted who would win the final 5 games. But I already had 2 of those results wrong. I'd suggest that East Perth would knock off Claremont, and South Fremantle would actually beat Swans, I thought, down at Fremantle. So going into the game, I thought South Fremantle would win. So looking at those tips, I think I had Peel Thunder to still stay on top from East Perth, Swans, South Fremantle, and East Fremantle in that order. I still think that's probably where we're going. I know it's a pretty safe bet just to repeat what the ladder is at the moment. But as I said, there are massive games. East Fremantle and South Fremantle this week. It's almost an elimination final. Although it doesn't discount either side for losing and missing out on the finals, but that's a pretty big game. Claremont and Peel play this week. Peel, again, have not been their best recently. The Dockers have had a few injuries at the higher level that has affected the Thunder side. Claremont did beat Peel earlier in the season as well. So a big opportunity there for Claremont. A loss for them will hurt them. A loss for them will put them at least, or keep them at least half a game, which is essentially a win out of the finals. Some massive games coming up in the following weeks. You've got East Fremantle playing Swans the next week, South Fremantle playing Peel. You've then got East Perth and East Fremantle the following week, Peel and Swans. And then the final round, you've got what could potentially be the top of the table clash to determine who gets the bye in the first round of finals. East Perth and Peel on the Sunday, the last game of the season, regular season, could well determine who finishes first, or even second, and host the qualifying final. So hard to say. Exciting stuff. And I just hope in 4 weeks' time, before the finals, when we chat again, that my team has made the finals and have got a good solid ranking in the finals going forward. But who's to say? Swans, they've got some tight games, as all the sides have. So it's a crystal ball, but I think at the moment Peel are in the box seat. Their percentage is the strongest, bar nobody. and only East Fremantle will have a percentage anywhere near Peel. So that's going to be worth another game in itself. So that's why I
Mhm.
think I've got Peel on the top at the end of the season. But, who knows at this stage.
Yeah,
So there's my answer on the fence.
the way this year's going, you just have absolutely no idea. Which it will be interesting because I'll go to my next question, and I'll even go behind the scenes of the podcast a little bit. Is I had an American math moment, as I said, as when I send the original script out, I put 3 rounds, not realizing 18 still counts, so it's 4 rounds. So with 4 rounds to go, sir, is the final five set, or can Subi push themselves into that six and make it 7 teams fighting for finals, or is it just too much an ask with 4 games and 3 games back?
Yeah, I think Subi's gone. They've probably got a 1% chance of making it. There, as you said, they're 3 wins out of the final. So mathematically, yes, they can do it if they win all 4 of their games, but they need both, not just one, but both of East Fremantle and Claremont to lose all of their games because of the percentage being so far behind. So the top 5 is definitely not set. I think anyone in the top 6 could finish from first to sixth. I did pick Peel to manage to stay on top, but that's not the fact that they're going to win all their last 4 games. I think it's just because of the combination of all the other matchups. Peel have actually got the hardest run. If you have a look at their fixtures on the run home, they play Claremont, they play South Fremantle, they play Swans, and they play East Perth in their last 4 games. So they're playing every other team that's in the mix. So they could easily lose all 4 of their games and end up 10-8 and not make the finals. So yeah, definitely it's up in the air. Subi, they're going to need a minor miracle it's a pretty much a major miracle to make the finals at this stage. So it's a 6-team race. Where those 6 finish, throw their names up in a hat and see where they land. I think that's about as good as you're going to get at this stage in the season.
Yeah.
Any predictions there?
Yeah, they would basically have to blow, and they'd have to win in blowout fashion every single one just to get their
Yeah,
percentage in a decent situation. So,
correct. Yeah,
unfortunately, you hate ruling them out, but at least you still, like I said, you've still got 6 teams still fighting for it, and a lot of very, very, very tasty games still to come up, which is a great transition. We'll go to the round 18 tips. Let's jump into it, sir. Some mouth-wateringly fun ones. We'll start off a little lackluster, a couple of teams towards the bottom of the ladder, as West Coast host Perth at Mineral Resources Park. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, interesting game this one. The Eagles and Perth have had a couple of thrillers. Their last couple of games, it was a draw last year at the same venue, and then they had a 2-point win. The Eagles up at Northam in a country game earlier in the season. So Perth would be hoping to win this. They've put in some really good performance of late, really pushing East Perth um, in the last start. So I think the Demons will get this and get themselves off the bottom of the ladder, which will actually put West Perth at the bottom of the ladder, unfortunately, Paul, and a chance for their first wooden spoon in nearly 30 seasons. So, or actually over 30 seasons. 1992 was the last time the Falcons were wooden spooners. So I think Perth will win this one
All right.
just by a
I,
couple.
I think I'm going to go with you. I think some injuries in the AFL. I think Perth has started to get some of their signings that they got this last year. Some of their more veteran players they brought in back into the squad. So I'm going to go with you on that one. We go to the Perth Derby as East Perth take on West Perth at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. Can the Royals get the loss and send Perth towards a closer chance or a wooden spoon, or can West Perth pull a massive upset?
Yeah, this one is it's got me hoping for a West Perth win. So, Paul, when you're listening to this, I'm hoping the Falcons win, and that's obviously 100% selfish because obviously those teams above Swans on the ladder, the losses for them would be great for Swans. I think the Falcons do have a chance. I don't think they have been as bad as their form suggests. They've been close to games. East Perth, after last week's pretty much shellacking by Claremont, I think the Royals will bounce back though and will get up and have a victory for this in this particular game.
Yeah.
By a couple of goals. Again, it'll be close. I think the weather's supposed to be nice for the weekend. If they can contain Keitel, who's kicked 5 goals or more in each of his last 4 games, that'll go a long way to a victory for the Royals, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. East Perth, but it'd be fascinating if the Falcons pull off an upset there, because it would definitely make things even more interesting in the ladder. Peel Thunder host Claremont at Lane Group Stadium. A fun one here. Claremont starting to find form. Peel a little shaky. It'll be interesting. Can we see Claremont knock off the top of the table, or can Peel surround themselves with a better shot of winning the minor premiership?
Yeah, another a massive game here, more so for Claremont, but also for Peel, as we've mentioned, it starts off their run of the last four games playing other teams in contention. Being down in Mandurah, the Thunder have lost the last couple down there. Claremont generally have a good record down there. Tough one. I think the Fremantle selections will make a big difference to this game. I'm going to go with Peel just in this one. I'm not convinced. I know Claremont, as I said, Claremont and Swans are probably the form teams, so I would have put it past the Tigers, but again, I'm just going to go with Peel just only for the fact that it's at home. So yeah, just Peel by a couple on this one.
I'm gonna have some fun. I'm gonna tip Claremont. I know my buddy Dave, who's a huge Claremont supporter, is gonna be giggling, gonna be chuckling as he listens to this. But you know what? I like a little bit of chaos. Let's have Claremont. I'm gonna tip Claremont to get the win here and keep things even more interesting on this ladder for sure. We jump to it. This is basically a bona fide elimination game as Swan Districts has a chance to end Subi's hopes completely at Steel Blue Oval. Can your Black Ducks end the Lions' chances for a finals berth? Or can Subi pull a huge upset and keep their finals chances slim, but still there?
Yeah, I can't see Subi getting up over this one. Swans will be hurting after last week's performance. The coach was not at all happy that the boys didn't hold on in that last quarter. I can see, for me, I'd be very disappointed if Swans don't win by 4 or 5 goals in this particular game. Subiaco have had a few outs. I'm just checking the team. So Greg Clark and Luke Foley are both out of the team. Greg Clark, former West Coast Eagle listed player, always puts in a good, strong performance against Swans. Ben Sokol, their full forward, has come back in, but I think Swans would be disappointed if they don't win this by 4 or 5 goals. Um,
I
so
yeah.
yeah, that's where I reckon for this one anyway.
Yeah, I got Swans winning this one. Unfortunately, Subi runs into the wrong team at the wrong time. I think they're going to be angry, and I think being at home, I think could be the perfect spell for Subiaco's hopes for finals to end. Unfortunately, and last but not least, the Fremantle Derby. East Fremantle hosts South Fremantle. The Fremantle Community Bank Oval is where this is at. A fun one to end the round. Who do you like in this one?
Oh, wow, this is a massive derby, one of the probably the biggest derbies we've seen for a number of years. Unfortunately, with the derbies, generally been South Fremantle have been dominant over the Sharks, and probably until last year, where sort of East Fremantle started pushing, and obviously did take out the premiership, where they did also steal a victory after 16 losses in a row. Massive game. It is going to be played at Fremantle Oval, even though East Fremantle are the home side. So that maybe puts it a little bit back in South's favour. Couple of massive ins for East Fremantle. Matt Jupp is back in as their fullback after a bit of a spell with concussion. Zach Strom is back, as is Toby McQuilkin for South Fremantle. So a couple of big ins for them as well. Oh, I've got to say East Fremantle with this one. I don't know why, and not with any great conviction. I think East Fremantle will just get up over the line with this one, but I reckon it's going to go down to the wire. So I reckon you've got to look at four or five really close games this round. Yeah, East Fremantle just for me for this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with you on that one. I think the Sharkies just playing a little bit better footy in this one, but again, the Derby upsets never surprise me. So definitely for sure. So I know it's been quick, but that is it. We've been through 5 rounds in the men's, the women's finals. So much footy to talk about. I know it's been a little while since we've talked WAFL footy, so I had to get that on before we get to finals. And as we said, 4 rounds till finals. So the next time you will see us is we will be previewing the WAFL men's finals. Cannot wait. The final five will be set, and we will see what 5 teams will be battling to win a premiership in 2024. Rick, as always, fantastic work. I love having you on. Real quick, we'll do it as we always do. How's everything going on WAFootyFacts.net, correct?
Almost. WAFL
WAFL
Nearly
footy
there,
facts.
Don. You got the .net right
Yeah.
there this time. Well,
I
for
got
that.
the end correct. Yes.
Mate, it's all good. Everything's keeping me busy with it. There's not really anything new that I've added lately. I've been pretty flat out with work and a cool little side hustle that I'm working with at the moment as well. So not much time to do much else other than putting the scores in at this stage. But everything's going pretty well, and yeah, there's a bit of work in the off season. But no, thanks for that. Yeah, wafflefootyfacts.net is still your place, your home for waffle facts and stats and history and everything you want to know about the West Australian Football League. That's for
It,
sure.
it is fantastic. If you want to get lost in numbers in history, it is a great place to check out. First time I did, I think I spent 45 minutes just going through all of the different tabs and everything. It was absolutely mental. It's so much fun. So that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. As per usual, if you like what you're listening to, please like and subscribe. We always love being able to talk more footy. That is going to do it for our show. We will see you again very, very soon with more footy coverage in your ears.